Hi, I'm Jim from UAV America. We get a lot of calls from people who have no idea what to order for themselves. They'll either call up and say, yeah, I want to get an octocopter, or I want to get a hexacopter, or I want to get a quadcopter, whatever. Probably in 90% of the cases, this little guy right here, which is the Phantom, is probably going to meet most people's needs. It's a great little machine. It's competitively priced. You know, for $1,000 you get the camera, you get the multi-rotor, and the whole 9 yards. But before I start to get into the specifics of which multi-rotor you want to buy, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what am I planning on doing with the multi-rotor that I needed? In most cases, you want to work backwards from the application that you're going to be doing, along with the type of camera that you're going to have to use for that application. Now, in some applications, obviously, you're not even using a camera. You're using a sensor like a FLIR, a Tetracam, or some other camera like that. But for most, let me just reach over here. For most of you, you're going to be using something like this, which is, in this case, it's a Hero 3, you know, a Hero 3, Hero 4 GoPro. You might want to use a point and shoot, an X7 or an X5. These are all different varieties, or you might even have a 5D or I think this one's a T2i, but these are getting pretty heavy, so obviously you're going to need a different kind of multi-rotor for something like that. First thing to do is to figure out which camera you're going to want, and then you're going to want to match up the multi-rotor to the camera itself. Something to keep in mind is that a quadcopter has 4 rotors. If one rotor goes out for any reason, you bump into a tree or something and break a prop, you're pretty much out of luck, and you're going to crash. If you need a certain level of redundancy, meaning that if you lose a motor, a prop breaks in midair for whatever reason, a crash, or it just falls apart or something because it was over-tightened, the octocopter and the hexacopter are going to give you the best redundancy. Obviously, the octo is going to give you a little bit more redundancy than the hex. Think about that, because if you're going to be flying with an expensive camera, you know, whether that's a 5D or some other DSLR, if you're going to fly with a Red or something like that, you're going to want something that's really, really dependable and reliable. So that you want to keep in mind. The other thing, and Matt wrote down all these weights for me for these different cameras. He went and weighed them the other day. Now, the weights are important because when you're looking at the specs on different multi-rotors, you're going to want to try to match up the camera that you have with what it says the payload capability is. Now, you have to be careful because sometimes these payload capabilities are with or without battery weight, or with or without a gimbal weight. So try to figure out what the actual payload beyond the weight of the battery and the weight of the gimbal and the weight of the multi-rotor is. Now, for example, our little Hero 3 Plus weighs 70 grams. Not much. It'll fly on, this is a Phantom Plus Vision, which comes with its own camera, but there's also a Phantom 2, and that one will handle a GoPro without any problem at all. In fact, it's designed for the GoPro. We have the S900 type camera, which is a point and shoot, which a lot of people use for mapping. That camera weighs about 190 grams. Again, pretty lightweight. Most anything is going to handle this, but not a Phantom. The Next 5, which I have over here, the Next 5 weighs about 385 grams, and the Next 7 is 475 grams. Just something to keep in mind. In our case, this is the T2i. It's not a 5D. This one is 1,230 grams, so it's getting pretty heavy there. For those of you who have trouble getting grams to pounds and all that, I believe 1,000 grams is 2.2 pounds. Okay, so this is more than 2 pounds. Getting pretty heavy. And when you add a gimbal and everything else, that thing is major. The GH4, which I don't have one here right now, runs at 690 grams, and the Canon 5D runs with different lenses. He's got different weights on here. 1141 grams.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we don't have the specs on the red right here. So go for it. So which one is right for you? Well, it's real simple in a way. If you know you're going to be flying either with a GoPro or or you don't want to buy a GoPro, you want to buy something totally complete, and you know you're a hobbyist for the most part, this Phantom is going to meet your needs. This is also great for things like real estate shooting and well, that's really about it, I guess, because these lenses on these GoPros and on the DJI camera distort the picture pretty badly, actually. Now, there's programs, software programs, that'll straighten that back out for you. So if you can live with that restriction, these are great machines. If you want to move up a notch, you know, you could go something like this. This is a quad that we make here. This one here has a different flight controller in it. We use a 3DR's Pixhawk for this guy, and we put a Tarot gimbal on it for the most part. We can also put a different gimbal on it to handle a heavier camera. This can handle quite a bit of weight. If you want to go with something like the point and shoot, like the S900, let me put it around this way so it looks prettier. So these two things would go together real well. Let's say an S900 and this Tarot. It'll also handle a GoPro, it'll handle a FLIR, it'll handle up to about 800 grams, I think, without any problem at all. It also has retractable landing gear, which if you wanted to use a 3-axis gimbal, it doesn't get in the way of when you're panning. The next one would be something like the 3DR X8 Plus. Thank you. Now the X8 Plus is highly redundant because now we've got 8 motors on this thing. Got 2 on each arm, up and down. It's coaxial. It's got the 3DR Pixhawk flight controller on it. Now I keep talking about these flight controllers, and for some of you, you probably don't know the difference between a NASA and a Pixhawk, and I probably should take just a second to explain that. DJI makes a number of different flight controllers. They make a NASA, and they make a A2 flight controller, and they also make a Wukong. 3 different flight controllers for 3 different purposes. For the most part, they use the NASA for hobbyists or higher level, or I should say real estate and things like that for photography. Phantom, yeah, the Phantom it comes equipped with a NASA. The A2 and the Wukong both offer more waypoints and a little bit more sophistication in the GPS and other options, ground stations and things like that. 3D Robotics out of San Diego makes the Pixhawk, and it's part of an open source project that was started by, I believe, Arducopter or Arduplane. What's the name of the? It's
APM is the name of the project.
APM is the project? Okay.
It's either APM copter or plane or whatever.
Okay. In any case, this is a really powerful flight controller. It has a ton of features on it, but you do have to be a little more sophisticated in getting it set up properly for both the machine and for flying. But there's a program called the Mission Planner that we use or the 3DR uses to set up your missions, and it's fully capable of autonomous takeoff, landings, and flight plan itself. Great flight controller. We've had really good luck with these things. Also comes with a telemetry radio. It's capable of carrying about 800 grams, maybe 1,000 grams. We mount a gimbal on here, or you can mount a gimbal yourself. So a good mapping machine for the S900, or you can put a GoPro on here and do photography with it. We use this S900 for our own mapping. It's actually an old camera that they stopped making, but it's nice because it has a built-in GPS in it, and gives you that second level of GPS. You can also hook your camera through the Pixoc, I believe, and do your GPS coordinates that way. All right, now we're moving up into cameras like the Nex 5 and the Nex 7. These cameras are, getting a little bit heavier. I believe I said the Nex 5 was 385 and the Nex 7 is 475 grams. So in theory, these things would work on some of these other multirotors I showed you, but by the time you get the batteries and the gimbals and all on those other machines, there's not a whole lot left over. So you want to make sure that you're flying with plenty of what we call overhead, meaning that you've got plenty of power to go beyond any of the payloads that you're going to try to carry. Now this is a really nice machine here. This is this is called an Aeronavics XM6, and this guy is is quite capable. You can see the landing gear on this one is kind of large. This guy will handle, I think, anything up to GH4 or less. You got the redundancy with the six arms and 6 motors, and this guy is a very serious machine. It's probably got some of the best video that we've seen. It's got flight times of a half an hour, and we equip these things usually with a A2 flight controller from DJI, but we'll also sometimes put a Pixoc on these depending on whether it's going to be used for mapping or whether it's going to be used for photography. And the reason why you don't see gimbals on these things right now is because when we find people order these different multirotors, everybody seems to be running something different and has different requirements. So rather than committing a particular machine to a particular gimbal, we usually wait until the orders come in and we try to match the right gimbal for the camera and the machine that the people are ordering. So the next machine that we wanted to show you was this S900 from DJI, and it's the newest or one of the newer products they've come out with. Now they have an Inspire 1, but we just sold the one that we had sitting here, so I can't show that to you today. But this S900 is a great little machine. It's easy to store. Whoops, I guess you can't see that, can you? The arms, just to show you, the arms fold down. Yeah, go ahead and pan down on it. Yeah. Anyhow, these arms, in storage are down, and then you just pop them up and just move them up like that, and the whole thing just goes together. Just got to remember which way to turn those. We've got a gimbal on this one. It looks like it's a gimbal for, what is this one for, Matt?
For a Nex 7.
This is for a Nex 7, okay. This is a great machine. It's probably the best priced hex on the market right now. It's extremely competitively priced. It's I believe that DJI sells this as a kit for about $3,800, and that includes the A2 flight controller and the gimbal, airframe, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so that's all basically as you see it is how it comes for $3,800, which really it can't be beat. And this is a great machine. It's solid, takes great video. These gimbals, you can't beat this. These Zenmuse gimbals from DJI are really, really nice gimbals. The only thing that some customers find a bit of a pain on these gimbals are that you have to dedicate the gimbal to a particular camera. So if you're going to be flying with a GH4 one day, and then you're going to fly with a GoPro or something the next day, you have to use 2 separate gimbals. The gimbals are dedicated, and the reason why they do that is because the gimbals themselves would require balancing and tuning, kind of significant tuning if you change the cameras, the weight and balance of the gimbal itself. So everything there requires, a lot of tinkering, and it's tough to get those things to work properly using the adjustments. So they have dedicated it. Now we'll be doing another video on gimbals shortly, so we won't get into a lot of detail on that. But basically, when you choose a gimbal, you can choose to have a single axis gimbal, which is usually going to be a tilt. You can have a 2-axis gimbal, which tends to be tilt and a roll. Or you can have a 3-axis gimbal, which again is tilt, roll, and pan. And there's a reason why you need all 3 of those for some situations, but a lot of other situations you might only need 1 axis or even no axis at all and just hard mount a camera for things like mapping. In any case, if you're planning on using a GoPro, Phantom is a great choice, or buying a Phantom with the built-in camera that it comes with on the Phantom Vision. You can also use a GoPro or a point and shoot if you go with the UAVA quad or the 3DR X8. They'll take a lot more cameras than the Phantom, which is built just for the GoPro or for the built-in camera. If you move up into a hex, they're ideal for Blackmagic pocket cameras, the Sony Nex 5 or Nex 7, or the Panasonic GH3, GH4. And again, these are the UAVA MR6A, which is really an aeronavix frame that we build out, or the DJI S900, which is a great little machine as well. And then finally, we'll just go over this. If you're using a larger camera, like the full-size Blackmagic or a Red or a Canon 5D, you really have to move up to an octo in order to handle the weight. We would recommend the S1000 for the 5D. And the Sky Jib we would recommend for any of these cameras. It'll handle 5D, the Red, or the Blackmagic with the Sky Jib. And that's the Sky Jib flat, which is the 8 arms, or the Sky Jib coaxial, which is the one that you see here, which has the motors up and down on each of the 4 arms. We are going to close this one out for today, and we will pick it up again when we talk about gimbals. Thanks for watching.